We're so excited to welcome Grammy and Juno award-winning artist Katie Lang to the Kelly Alexander Show. Katie, welcome.
Thank you, Kelly. Nice to be here.
So I'm going to start off with a big one right away. You're definitely a national treasure, right up there alongside Wayne Gretzky and Celine Dion.
Cheesies.
Yeah, Cheesies, that's true. And I think, a lot of Canadians feel like they have to have their Katie Lang alongside their Tim Hortons coffee. Do you ever let that sort of thought process and accomplishment sort of seep into your consciousness? Is it sort of outside of yourself?
Yes, it is. I'll tell you why, because Canada has so many tremendous artists. We definitely have a lion's share in terms of our population. There's just so many tremendous Canadian songwriters, singers, and people who have impacted the cultural scene in the world. And I'm just so honored that I would even be considered to be one of those.
Now, 25 years, 25th anniversary, in fact, of your award-winning album, Ingénue. Do you still look at that body of work with the same kind of feelings and emotions of 25 years ago, or are you fairly removed from who you were then?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I still definitely feel the music. I've just sort of started rehearsing some of the songs and going through the material, and definitely the emotions from the writing period are still there, although 25 years allows you quite a lot of wisdom and insight. So I'm removed, and at the same time, I totally have a innate understanding still of where the music's coming from. So it's going to be very interesting to do this record in sequence in its entirety, and for the opening half of the show. So I don't know what I'm going to feel like when I do it, but I'll let you know next time I talk to you.
Fantastic. Well, I hope there's a next time. Thank you. I wanted to mention now, because, I've been fortunate to speak to a fair amount of artists in my time as a radio announcer. And one thing I seem to sort of get the sense of is a lot of the songs that we as fans love, like Lose Their Minds for example, with yours, let's just use Constant Craving as an example. It's not necessarily the artist's favorite song to perform. Is that how you feel, or do you love performing it as much because the fans go nuts?
Yes and yes. It's a song that, you feel onus to. Both you feel responsible that you have to do it, and that feels like a burden somewhat, but it also it relieves the burden when the audience sings. So it every night when the audience is so excited to hear it, it takes all the burden away. So everything that you suspected is true.
I've always wanted to ask you this with regards to Constant Craving, because it's so infectious, and like all of us that can't sing just belt out in the shower, and think we're you. Was it, when you were creating that song, did you have a sense that song was going to blow up? Like, did you know?
Well, I knew that it was obviously the most pop-sounding song on the record. The record was pretty insular, pretty internal and melancholic, and then at the end of the record is Constant Craving, which to me was a celebratory summation of understanding that desire is a human condition. So I think when I think about the intention and the sort of the intellectual theme of the song, it makes sense that would be a song that would become popular.
Now, can you talk to us about the tour itself? So you mentioned, I know you're going to play Ingénue in sequence, which I think is fantastic. And then what else can your fans expect when you hit the stage, especially here in Montreal on September 2nd?
Well, a couple things. Then I get to branch off into some of the Hymns of the 49th Parallel, which celebrates Canadian songwriters. But even more exciting than that is that in every Canadian market, to celebrate the Canadian 150th anniversary, we're going to be having local singer-songwriters opening for our shows. So that's very, very exciting to me, that I can give back to the music community and also the community in general by supporting an up-and-coming local.
Can you delve into that for just a sec? Because I think that's fascinating, because normally, big acts that come into town, it's like the promoter that picks their opening act or what have you, or maybe it's a label mate or something like that. But for us here in Montreal, I know you're going to have Gabrielle, who was a contestant on La Voix. So what was it like to go about and pick Gabrielle?
Well, I certainly had help from the promoters, because I couldn't know all the local scene as well as the promoters would. And so they gave me some options, and I sort of went through them and picked who I thought would be most suited to opening for the Ingénue tour.
Now, you're going to be in 17 cities across the country. Again, you hit Montreal on September 2nd. And I'm kind of curious to know how you feel about Montreal in general, noting that you are so patriotic with regards to Canada in general. Where does Montreal sort of settle in your heart? And I don't know if your love of Leonard Cohen plays into that, knowing that he is from here.
Well, it definitely does, because I remember early on when I was, wearing the country punk regalia. I was walking down the street in Montreal. I had a show at, what was that club called?
Was it? Oh, I know what it means. Foufoune Électrique. There you go.
Yeah, that one. And was walking down the street one afternoon, and there was Leonard Cohen having coffee with somebody, and I walked up to him and started talking to him. He probably had no idea who I was back then. But Montreal will always forever be the sort of the exotic, sophisticated part of Canada for me. Just a beautiful city, Quebec as well. And I'm always excited to play Montreal. And I hope that people who are in Montreal right now being flooded are not being their lives disrupted too much. I hope that it's something that they're able to deal with and feel the support of the rest of Canada going through this horrific thing that they're going through.
Well, just hearing you say that, I know is actually going to bring a lot of comfort to my fellow Montrealers, because it has been terrible, and knowing that someone like yourself even knows what's going on here, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a terrible, chaotic, and vulnerable time. So know that we're with you and thinking of you, and hope you recover quickly.
Now, Canada's celebrating its 150th birthday this year, and I know that you've been chosen to be an ambassador. What is your role involved with all of this? It sounds really awesome.
I have gold shoes, and I have a Canadian flag cape, and really, it's not much different than I've done my whole life, which is sing the praises of this amazing country, because we have to really humbly look at how amazingly fortunate we are to live in this world in freedom and be a progressive example for the rest of the world. And like I said, humbly, without being too cocky about it and morally superior. I think it's a really amazing opportunity to set standards for other societies who want to live in freedom and democracy.
I wanted to ask you about this. I was perusing your Instagram account and noticed that you actually had posted a picture of yourself and George Michael, along with David Bowie, around the time that George passed away. And I know that so many of us were devastated when George passed away on Christmas this past year. Also, we've lost some amazingly talented artists as well, like David Bowie and, of course, Prince. What's your thoughts on that? Because some of these people are your contemporaries. Did it really shake you to the core when George, for example, left us?
Yeah, it did. George was such a gentleman, such an amazing philanthropist. I mean, he gave so much money away and was always supportive of people in need. And he's so humble and, such a talent. So it's always hard when we lose people like that, but impermanence is something that we must accept and use as a teacher. With
regards to your fans, is it a give and take relationship between you and us, especially over the years, considering that you've been around for so many years, which I think is fantastic, because so many young artists that are coming up now, the landscape just doesn't call for that. Like sometimes they're out of here in about 2 or 3 years and never to be heard from again. So what's your relationship you feel with your fans?
Well, I totally appreciate my fans. I think I have a slightly different relationship with my fans because I love my privacy. But I also really appreciate my fans. I think if my fans understand that I don't like the celebrity angle of being a musician, if I really am there to offer them music, then we'd get along really well.
Fantastic. And before I let you go, I did just want to play this little quick quiz game with you called Fast Facts with Katie Lang, just to let your fans maybe know a little bit more about you in an unobtrusive way. So I wanted to ask you right now, what artist are you currently listening to when you drive around town or in your MP3 player?
Everything from a guy named DJ Snake to local independent radio here in Calgary. But I listen to a lot of classic jazz. I listen to a lot of classical. So I'm pretty all over the map.
Gotcha. Now, do you still actually read newspapers and magazines, or do you digest everything online?
Newspapers and online.
Is there a young pop artist right now that you really enjoy listening to that people might be surprised that you enjoy? Like, are you like maybe a Miley Cyrus fan or the Katy Perry of the world?
Probably. I like listening to the youngsters. I would be more alternative than Miley and Katy. I'm probably more into, the young singer-songwriters, not too different than the people that are going to be opening for me. So I'm kind of a more independent, alternative listener.
Gotcha. And I do have to ask you this. What's your favorite comfort food?
Butter.
That's the best answer.
Butter on anything. Butter on rice. Butter on, crackers. Butter on broccoli. I love butter.
That's so cool. And finally, who's the coolest contact in your phone apart from family and friends? Like, can Katie Lang sort of dial up Elton John or Celine Dion?
I definitely have Elton's number in my phone. I don't have Celine's, but I have Elton's. But let's see. Probably, people like Gus Van Sant, he's a friend of mine from Portland who, did Good Will Hunting, and who I met him doing Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, that film from way back in the early 90s. So, just it's the eclectic mix.
I love it. I hope Madonna's in there and Roseanne Barr too. I'm not sure, but I hope they're in there.
Well, Roseanne is, and Madonna, no. I'm one step away from Madonna.
Okay, gotcha. And final question, what message would you like to leave your Montreal fans with? Because we're so excited to see you here on September 2nd.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to come to your beautiful city who has such a deep cultural appreciation for the arts, to be a part of that. And please quickly and positively, regroup from the flood.
Awesome. Katie, you rock. Thank you so much for this. We wish you continued success in all you do.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.